miss the Hulu original docuseries Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie.
My wife created a YouTube channel.
Thumbs up, subscribe.
But only what we wanted to show.
I'm still recording!
A 3-part series event.
She said the children were demonically possessed.
Get out!
That blew the powder keg.
Ruby crossed a line to psychotic.
911 emergency.
Open the door!
Hulu's Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie. All episodes available February 27th. Streaming on Hulu.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now boarding Group A. Please have your boarding passes ready to scan. If your phone is cracked, old, or was chewed up by your Chihuahua travel companion, please refrain from holding up the line. Instead, go to Verizon and trade in any phone in any condition from one of their top brands for the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus with Galaxy AI and a watch and tab on any plan. Only on Verizon.
With new line on My Plan. Service plan required for watch and tab. Additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, a young travel vlogger vanishes during a cross-country trip, and her boyfriend won't talk to police. The case sparked a national obsession. We'll talk about the Netflix documentary series American Murder, Gabby Petito. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Tina Fey.
Listen, it's not as bad as these. Let me just show you. I have 2 pairs of readers down here.
Yeah.
Because I officially can't read anymore. I can't even read my phone.
I can't even see on my phone without these things on.
Me neither. I'm doing the New York Times crossword, and I have to wear these for that. These huge ones. Yeah.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with wearing glasses.
Actually, Kevin, his glasses are very similar to yours.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to put the other ones on because they're a little daintier.
Wait, are you wearing contact lenses underneath the readers? I am wearing
contact lenses with magnification that I could actually read with like 5 years ago. No more. I literally can't read anything.
You need those jeweler's glasses.
You had a loop? With like the giant thing, yeah.
You wear it with a little chain around your neck.
Yeah.
I need the ones that like have the magnet in the middle where you like pull them up and
pull
then
off
just
the bridge.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca. And I am now like an après-ski expert. I just meet friends of mine that come to New Hampshire at après-ski, and I don't have to ski.
And you put on your reader so you can look at the menu at the bar.
Yes, I do. Yes.
You know, we went to Valentine's Day dinner, nice restaurant, dim lighting. Everybody's taking out their phones for the flashlight so they can read the fucking menu.
Mm-hmm. I took out my readers.
It's not just us middle-aged people.
No.
I have readers in every pocket of everything I own at this point.
Well, let me introduce Toby and then we'll get back to that. And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin, this is Monday's program.
It is.
What's coming up on Thursday's show?
On Thursday, we're talking about the new season of Uncover from CBC. It's called Sea of Lies.
Wonderful. Okay, back to readers. So, Kevin, did I or did I not make you and Teddy, we were out doing dinner or something, and I was like, we have to stop at CVS because I can't see anything.
Right, that's why we stopped at CVS.
Yeah.
I forgot. I thought it was some medical emergency in my head.
No, I needed readers. I was like, I could not read the menu at the restaurant. We went to, was that the night we went to the one in Manchester?
No, we went to our favorite Chinese restaurant where we prefer to sit at the bar. Not the sushi bar, the actual bar.
Yeah, it's very, very cheesy and non-atmospheric, and we love it. We play Keno. And for those who don't know, in America, Keno is a lottery game that you play in real time. And if you know you're going to die in an hour, it's the one you want to play because it makes the hour go really slowly. Keno on a treadmill is the perfect way to stretch time. Anyway, I'm giving in. I'm officially blind when it comes to reading. And I just ordered a large pack of readers from Amazon. So how many do you own, Laura?
Probably like 20 pairs, but I just get mine from the dollar store. Yeah. And I got them in my stocking at Christmas this year because I was that person who was like, I can't see. Where are my readers? They're just everywhere now. My car, my jacket, my house, my office, every orifice has a every orifice.
The issue with
if you have readers in every orifice, you're not wearing them right.
Yeah, I need more pairs too. I need like 10 more pairs. Yeah, I'm only a 1.0 right now, but I know that like in 6 months I'm going to be like a 2.0 or whatever.
I'm 1.5.
Okay, it's good to know I'm not alone and being a low number because they don't have a lot of 1.0s in stock.
No, but they do at the dollar store. They have the 1.5s. Okay. And you can get many colors and designs.
All right.
Meanwhile, Toby has
Here's a pro tip.
Yeah.
Is you can just hold things at your furthest possible arm's length.
I can't see it anymore. Toby,
that's
what I've been doing for the last 2 years, and now I can't see it when I go like this.
I can't either, and it's. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So I am wearing contact lenses with maximum magnification, and I have to put readers on. It's bad.
Meanwhile, Toby Ball has the eyesight of an airline pilot.
Yes.
I don't. I just choose not to wear glasses.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all right.
But can you read?
Sometimes. I was actually having this conversation yesterday with somebody. I was like, I got to call up the New Yorker and just cancel my print subscription because I just ended up reading it on my iPad anyway because I can make the font big enough to read. So yeah, I mean, I'm fooling myself.
Yeah, it's bad.
I've also got glasses for distance vision, but the only time I wear them is if I go to like a sporting event because then it really does help.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't wear it at all.
I wear mine all the time. It was bad when I adjusted the lighting on my phone to make the font more bold so I could read it.
Yeah.
And then I still couldn't read it after a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess that was a short-lived solution.
Yeah. Yeah. It's bad. And I just want to say anyone out there who's under 40 who hasn't experienced this yet and are thinking, this isn't going to happen to me. My vision's always been fine.
Nope. It happens. Nope. It happens.
It's going to happen.
It's everywhere. Next to the bed, I wake up in the morning and check my emails and stuff. And I'm like, where's my glasses? It's my phone. Oh.
All right. Well, Kevin, we have something that I didn't need to read readers to talk about because it was on television. Should we go ahead and talk about that?
The screen was big, so you could follow along, right?
We'll just say this.
It wasn't in Swedish this week, so you didn't have to read any of it.
Okay. We used to have a 55-inch television, which is not a small television. It's a decent-sized television. And like 2 years ago, I was like, Kevin, we need a new fucking TV. And now we have a 79-inch television.
What?
Because I can't fucking
They don't make them
see.
that big.
It's 70. I can't see.
You were like, after COVID, you're like, I'm never going to a movie theater the rest of my life. Let's get the biggest TV we can and have the experience.
But now I can see it. And I can read the print on it because you got the big one. So anyway.
Even the dogs can see it.
Yeah, they like to watch the TV. They do. They love it. All right. Anyway, should we talk about the thing we're talking about?
Please do.
Everyone else is, so we should be too. Leading off.
On the television screen was Gabby. I just lost it, to be honest. I was screaming, what did he do? He did something, what did he do?
In 2021, with plans to create a travel vlog, Gabby Petito and her boyfriend Brian Laundrie set off in a converted van to document their trip across America. But in between social media posts, the couple's relationship grew dark, even resulting in a traffic stop by cops investigating a domestic violence complaint.
I don't care if we use the actual letter of the law to not charge, but I also don't care because it literally does possibly make perfect sense to go full-on domestic assault and do the whole thing.
In the subsequent days, Gabby's parents lost touch with her. Then Brian returned home with the van, but with Gabby nowhere to be found. The mystery of the young woman's disappearance gripped the nation.
This investigation, as we've said, stretches almost from coast to coast, more than 2,000 miles right now under investigation. Teams are trying to retrace Gabby's steps across the West Coast.
Netflix's American Murder, Gabby Petito tackles the biggest true crime case of the decade. Using Gabby's private videos, texts, and journal entries, the series traces her early life, her ill-fated trip, and frantic search for her online and on the ground. It also examines the action of the Laundrie family, as well as the conversation the case sparked about who gets press coverage and who gets ignored. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about significant plot points from American Murder, Gabby Petito. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes.
Is it possible to spoil this?
No, for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. And I should also mention that I do host a podcast for Netflix called You Can't Make This Up. And on that show, I did interview the filmmakers behind this documentary, but that has not influenced my review. So, Kevin, when this case was really hot in the news, when it became a story about being a story, all that stuff, I wasn't really paying a lot of attention. I just knew the broad strokes. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that it was like super buzzworthy in real time. And it was, all over social media and in the true crime circles. And people were talking about it in our Facebook group. I really didn't get into it. I mean, I think I largely avoided it maybe because of the hype. I don't know, maybe because
of the white girl syndrome thing.
It felt like a Nancy Grace kind of story.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't quite know what to make. I mean, it certainly kicked off a new kind of true crime zeitgeist when we start, factoring in social media, TikTok kind of response.
Yeah.
It's more than just like Twitter, which we had sort of like that era, but this was like among the first, certainly the biggest of its kind. And I don't know if that just like, I was like, I'm not into that, whatever. I mean, I think personally, I'm not into this for the consumption of true crime per se. I'm interested in sort of the telling of nonfiction stories, a lot that have to do with true crime and the way that they do that. So I was kind of like, I'm not interested in just following this for the mystery. But that's kind of why, I didn't get on that bandwagon. However, I know a lot of people did.
Yeah, I didn't get on it because I'm not on True Crime Talk, which is like a whole part of TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Other cases, Kevin, that people are also equally obsessed with, by the way, is the Brian Kohlberger case, the guy who is accused of murdering those 4 college students in Idaho, and the case of those 2 girls who were murdered on the hiking trail. This is the subject of the Over the Hill podcast.
Mm-hmm. Right. Delphi.
Yeah, the Delphi murders. Yeah, those are also huge on Crime Talk, and anything that has any kind of potential mystery or speculation or outrage.
I guess I was just waiting for the Netflix series on the crime to understand
and
it.
Frequently the criticism is that these cases that spark Crime Talk are about young, white, pretty women. That seems to be a thing that threads them together. But in this case, I do think, and even people who criticize the coverage of it and the hype of it will say that it doesn't mean that what happened to Gabby isn't bad and we shouldn't look at it in some way. And I think that's what the documentary tries to do. So Laura, one of the things that we get that I didn't know anything about before was the prior relationship between Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito. We get some insight into that in this documentary.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's interesting about this is we can all look at something now and be like, yeah, we would have seen that coming. Her friends kind of did see this coming.
She actually felt more independent. And that's when he was like, okay, I got to do something to change this. Let me isolate her. If I get her away from her job, I get her away from her friend, she only has me.
That's one of the things that I think is really heartbreaking when you realize that they had reservations about what was happening with her and sort of this control and manipulation that was happening with Brian. We have the female friend, I can't remember her name, who at one point Gabby actually leaves and is spending some time away from Brian, and he is just hounding her, and we're getting insight to that relationship through the text messages back and forth between them. And she's trying to set boundaries with him and being like, I want to see you, but you need to stop doing X, Y, and Z. And her friend is saying, God, when she was with me, she was so much better. And then you see sort of that cycle where then she gets kind of sucked back in. And then the next thing you know, they're in their little van going cross country. But you hear the background that there were concerns before. And we can all look at it now with this lens of what happened and where did it start. But I think that's one of the kind of, I don't want to say lessons that you can take from this is there was definitely some red flags in terms of the type of behavior between them in that relationship.
Oh, 100% there was.
I just want to point out that Toby just put on a pair of glasses.
Yes,
I think
he did.
He's trolling
Toby.
us.
Okay, we're all going to put our glasses on now.
These are Felix Grays,
Okay.
so they're just blocking the blue.
The blue, yeah. Man, that's deep cut on the advertisers.
Yeah. All right. So one of the things that we also learn about Toby is the couple's relationship beforehand, how they got to where they ended up, getting on the road, taking the van trip. What did you think about how the documentary covered that background info?
Well, it left me with a lot of questions, to be honest. The first being they went to high school together, but his parents were down in Florida, which, maybe they moved down to Florida after he graduated, but it would have been nice if they'd mentioned that, because I was just kind of like, what's going on here? Was he living with relatives? And if so, why? And then it's really not clear where the money for all this stuff comes from. They talk about Gabby working at Taco Bell for 50 hours a week. And then Brian, I assume, is working on his art in his garage or something. But there's no sense of how are they funding this trip? It's not brought up in the slightest, whether they're getting money from their parents or they have trust funds or what the deal is. So you get some kind of insight into what their clique was like in high school. They were the arty kids. It was mostly dudes, but it was Gabby and then her one friend who they talked to from high school, who is also friends with Brian. But it was just kind of weird in that the stuff that they left out, which wouldn't have taken like more than 30 seconds to kind of bring you up to speed with, it wasn't like it was that important, but it was sort of a head scratcher. It's like, what's going on with this?
Right. They took all those savings bonds they got in birthday cards growing up, Toby.
Exactly. They finally matured. Yeah. So it's just one of those things where like when you're writing a book and there's like a sentence that like kind of stops people and they're like, what is that supposed to mean? And then you go back and you change it because that's not good writing. It just kind of felt like there's a few things here where I was asking questions that were probably very, very easily answered, but weren't provided. And that was a little distracting.
Yeah. So like Gabby took the money that was intended for her college and instead did this thing or something. Because the one thing that is clear, the documentary does make clear, is the van belonged to her. That she funded this van and she funded this travel. I mean, that's what seems clear to me. And, you know, this kind of travel is actually incredibly common. And my Facebook scroll, I get all those reels and I see tons of reels of tiny house / van life people making content. So I knew it was a thing. And I know it's a thing that people with no money do, thinking that they're going to also make money doing it. Kevin, were you aware of this phenomenon? No?
Nope.
Why? Because you could never conceive of living in a van?
Down by the river.
Living in a van or a tiny house were not two goals of mine growing up.
Because you want more than one dish?
More than one dish.
Yeah.
Yeah, things seems like a real Gen Z kind of thing, which is not me, but that's fine. You got to do you. But also the idea that like she's just going to go out and create this blog and put it out in the world and that money's going to boomerang back. I don't know. It happens for some people, but it certainly seemed like an idealistic swing here that we're going to spend this money to get this van and that's what we're going to do. I mean,
and the drone. Don't forget about the drone.
The drone footage was kind of, I was like, well, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things about like the film is that if you're going to bring it up here is that we know that she only posted one video. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of like raw footage that the world has never seen. And they dig into it here. And there's like, you can sense tension that's caught between them. We don't get to see like an argument or something or like, oh, like super red flag and let's cut the camera so that we can continue this argument. But there was definitely growing tension there.
I would imagine that there's a lot of deleted video that we'll never see that, she may have been filming and something and then she'd delete it and do another, whatever.
Yeah.
But he does seem to have his teeth on edge for many of the conversations that they're having. Like he's putting on a smile, but you can tell he's not loving it.
It's like, what am I doing in Utah?
There's probably a ton of footage that they have.
They do.
So I was kind of wondering again, are they just cherry picking the stuff that seems tense in order to build this argument that they're making in the documentary? Or is this really like a fair amount of it is him being like sort of passively resistant or whatever to what's going on?
But Toby, to a note that you made, when you're putting together a documentary, you also don't want the footage to be boring. And as we see, a lot of Gabby's footage is very boring.
Freaking like, I'm making eggs.
Exactly.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's going to go viral.
Yeah.
I just, when I was watching the stuff that she's making, I'm like, I guess people do make money off that stuff, but it seems, it was just boring stuff, but that was taking place in a van. And then the one thing she did post was this thing where she's like frolicking around by the waves. It's like, there's no way you would act like that if the camera wasn't rolling.
Right.
Like
very curious.
Adults don't do that. So you're absolutely doing that for the camera. That whole thing seems so kind of artificial. And I felt as though, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more, I was really frustrated with this documentary. And part of it was there seemed to be all these pieces that would make an interesting look at how these people who are trying to do like van life things are creating this absolutely fake front for what is actually potentially a pretty grim situation and how that dynamic works out. And they really don't do that at all. They just kind of show it to be like, oh, and then they went to Utah and here's Gabby like making eggs. And here's, Brian not wanting to like say his lines while they're like sitting in yoga poses in front of, Monument Valley or whatever it is. I was like, I don't think I would subscribe to that channel.
But I think if we learn one thing from an update on our family is that the mundane is what people want.
Love it.
I was going to say the same thing, Kevin, because there's clearly a market for that. There's probably a market for this. It's just we are not the target demographic.
Well, what's interesting?
Van life.
What's interesting is that the van life, these kind of vlogs that I see on my reels, it's more aspirational. It's like there's this couple that their videos are always showing up on my feeds, and they travel all over the world. They also have had a van life experience or are having one now. And they'll show, like, because they travel so much and they get all these freebies, and they sort of like review travel experiences as part of their van life, travel life experience. You know, they'll go into the lounge at the airport in Turkey, which is like the best airport lounge in the world. And they'll show you all this stuff. And it is boring, but at least it's something you'll never see otherwise. But there definitely is a swath of the population that just likes to watch the pedantic because it makes them feel less lonely. And that this maybe is aspirational for them because they're not going to go vanning.
Speaking of the pedantic, our Patreon.
Yes. I guess we're in the business section now.
I just kind of swooped right in.
I just want to say we will talk about the meatier stuff about this doc after the business section. So go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, yeah. So if you join us at patreon.com/partners in crime media, look us up on the app, look us up on the laptop version. You'll get all sorts of exclusive content if you join us at the leading off level. You're going to get the Crime Writers on After Show. This week, we're actually going to expand our discussion on the Gabby Petito case, looking a little more deeply and giving more of our thoughts on the idea of the white woman
Missing
syndrome?
White girl.
Missing white girl, about who gets coverage, who doesn't. Is there a way to balance that? Is it fair to the people that do get the coverage? Is it unfair to the people that don't? We're going to kind of like kick that around a little more. You also can get great podcasts like Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, our advice show, the Married With podcast, and Rebecca's Readathon, which covers the Karen Reed case. Rebecca, did Judge Bev get really worked up over nothing?
Oh my God. Seemingly so. Seemingly the prosecutor either lied or was completely unaware of what he was saying, and she stormed out of the goddamn courtroom. I've never seen anything like it.
But she was angry at the defense.
She was angry at the defense.
Yeah. Because she was misled.
She thought the defense lied, but they didn't.
Okay, well, we'll just have to pull all that apart.
Wild.
If you join us at the Bricker scale level, you get an additional podcast. It's Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. And Laura, you nearly died giving us the last episode, didn't you?
I did, and I might nearly. I went up halfway up Mount Washington in this like crazy apocalypse van. And my next Leave It to Bricker, I might almost die. I am entering a winter snowshoe race.
Oh.
In a winery vineyard.
Are you going to run or just walk?
Or stumble?
No, well, I'm going to see. I haven't actually been on my snowshoes this year.
But you're going to walk.
Right now, I'm working on my name for that. So I go out there and put my life on the line for the Bricker scale people.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd watch any van life stuff, but I totally would watch you going up the Mount Washington Auto Road in a snowcat.
Yeah.
If you join us at the Let's Do What We Do level, you get all that, plus episodes of Crime Writers on early and ad-free. And if you're a deep diver, you should be tuning in tomorrow night because Simone Paget, Kimberly Griffin, and Justine Vanderloon will be joining Toby to talk about the next deep dive. Toby, what's the book?
It's Murder in the Bayou by Ethan Brown. And 5 lucky winners will get to go on a field trip to Jennings, Louisiana, where we can purchase crack from the local constabulary.
Ooh, interesting.
Okay, just legal disclaimer, that's not a real contest. Okay.
That was, you didn't see my air quotes.
No, I couldn't.
It's audio.
I'm the one who doesn't have their glasses on right now. So.
All right.
So you get all sorts of great stuff, and you support this podcast, and you keep us going, because if you don't keep us going, we're not going to be able to do this. Boy, that sounds like really dire, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, if you don't, we're going to have to get into a van and start doing unboxing videos to survive.
Rebecca's makeup tutorials.
Rebecca's makeup tutorial. Your hair stuff would be, people would pay money to watch you curl your hair.
They would.
Maybe.
They would.
Maybe. We'll see. All right, Kevin, is that it for the business section?
Yeah, thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now.
Switch to Verizon Business and get more from your internet without paying more for your internet. Get LTE Business Internet starting at $39 a month when paired with a Business Unlimited smartphone plan. That's unlimited data, and with it, unlimited possibilities. Start saving today with Verizon Business, ranked #1 in small business internet customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Starting price for 25 megabits per second internet plan with savings, plus taxes, fees, and economic adjustment charge. Terms apply. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
All right, Kevin, let's finish up our discussion.
Yeah, because we got to make dinner.
We do?
Yeah, we almost never have time for dinner, and that's why HelloFresh is so fantastic.
Oh, HelloFresh.
So you can skip the grocery store and make cooking at home easy, fun, and affordable with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Of course, it's delivered right to your door. But what we like about it is that you don't have to take too much time to make it. Now, of course, they got all sorts of great recipes like the pork sausage spaghetti bolognese.
Ooh, my
It's in
favorite.
their Hall of Fame. Very easy to make. You got a little extra time. You want to put that effort into the gingery coconut chicken soup.
So good.
Sometimes, though, you just got to get it done, right? Because you've been podcasting all day. So HelloFresh's prep and bake meals come together within 5 minutes of prep, while HelloFresh's 15-minute meals are done in just 3 simple steps.
Incredible.
So you can finish up what you're doing. You can put some great food on the table. Remember, all the time, though, you also save from, like, grocery shopping.
Oh, yeah. Kevin, there's so many great options here.
Get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast. 1 item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast.
So, Kevin, who's our next sponsor?
Oh, we're brought to you by Quince.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, with the new year comes a new opportunity to reimagine ourselves and, more importantly, our wardrobes.
Incredible.
Refresh your look with quality pieces and stay on budget with Quince. You know what happens in January?
What?
We talk about all the things that we wanted for Christmas but never got, so we buy it for ourselves.
Yes.
That includes high-quality clothes, things that look good, feel good, and you can get that from Quince.
Kevin, I am a Quince fanatic.
You are.
I have multiple items in multiple colors of the same item from Quince. I love their cashmere sweaters.
They're cozy Mongolian cashmere sweaters.
Incredible sweaters at a great price.
Yeah, they're always priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they're able to do that by partnering directly with top factories, cutting out the cost of the middleman. No middleman.
I love how they actually show you, Kevin. They actually show you like what it would cost if you bought it somewhere else, like from the same place. It's incredible. So upgrade your closet this year without that upgraded price tag. Go to quince.com/crime for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime. So, Laura, the real heart of this documentary, a section where the directors made the decision to not make any edits and just do this long rolling, basically true showing in real time of what happened, is the traffic stop. So what happened is this couple is in Utah. There's a phone call that comes in to 911 from a passerby, a bystander, who's seen Brian slap Gabby, and that results in a traffic stop. So, Laura, what do you think about the use of body cam footage in this documentary and then what we saw at that traffic stop?
So I think that using this body-worn camera footage throughout this documentary, for me, I was like, good. I review a lot of this in like my day job in looking at cases, and I think it really gives you a sense of the whole picture of what's going on while somebody is either being pulled over or arrested or questioned or anything. You're not just getting that like quick little soundbite. You're actually watching and you're thinking like, well, what would I do in that situation? What would I think in this situation? So in this particular instance, this is where I started to get my hackles up a little because I'm watching it and you see like the male police officer pulls them over and Brian's like, oh, she's having like a panic. Oh, she's panicked. She's anxious. She's this, she's got OCD, whatever. And you see them take Gabby away and it's pretty clear watching it. She's very upset.
She has marks on her,
She has marks on her. But the male police officers latch on to the fact that he's got a mark on his face and she must have been scratching him. And the male police officer's like, well, my wife's like that too. Oh, I totally know how it is, buddy. Basically. And I'm like,
down there. I don't know. We've been fighting all morning and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because you're OCD?
Told me I need to calm down. But I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time. And he really stresses me out. And this is a rough morning.
Well.
And the woman showed up and I thought, oh, the woman police officer is actually going to know what's going on. Because the thing was, the male police officer also was questioning Gabby. And if she's an actual victim, that would not be the way that I would question something. Like, he's just like, so you got a mark on your arm. Oh, is that new? Is that old? Like, he's just like really gruff with her. And so the woman comes and I'm like, okay, she's going to be a little bit more savvy in how to actually interview somebody that's perhaps just had an assault. Not really. So you watch this whole thing unfold and you're thinking, how can these police officers not realize what's actually happening here? And then This is where all of a sudden I was like, remember the sound effect you used to have for me?
Yeah.
The thunder, the lightning?
Yes. Wait.
Everything is frightening.
Should we bring that out?
Yes.
What do we call that?
The Brichter scale.
Brichter scale.
We're at a hyper level on the Brichter scale here. Yes.
Okay, we're going to separate you two and we're going to take Brian to a hotel because he's a victim.
A hotel, by the way, that is for domestic violence victims. That's what the hotel is for.
Yes. And we're going to let Gabby stay in the van by herself because she's a hysterical woman and poor Brian has scratches on his face. I was like, "Wah!"
It was just a silly argument. We were just going to get water.
A silly argument where it came to putting hands on each other and he'd got Mark. Silly arguments shouldn't involve hurting each other. I know you didn't, that wasn't the intention, but silly arguments shouldn't go that far.
So I think having that body-worn camera, like you could have somebody tell you that story of like, oh, this is what happened, but actually watching it, you're like, this is bullshit. This is some real bullshit right now.
Yeah, I found that using the extended footage was really compelling, and I thought a smart editorial choice because we've seen a lot of sort of the clips and the sound bites from this stop in the news, but we haven't seen sort of a longer form, uncut version to sort of like get like greater context for what was happening and why things turned out the way that they did. Now, so just set aside like what their final decisions were, like right, wrong, whatever. You can't say that they didn't discuss it at length, trying to figure out, okay, what went on, because even though he says this and she says that, and that's like not uncommon, but they're really talking about, do we go by the letter of the law and then lock her up? What do we do about him? Like they gave it some thought.
How far do you want to go with this? Like, the reason why they don't give us discretion on these things is because too many times women who are at risk want to go back to their abuser, and then they end up getting worse and worse treatment, and then they end up getting killed. In no way, shape, or form that I can perceive that this is going to digress into a situation where he's going to be a battered man. Right. But then again, I don't have a crystal ball.
So you can't say they just jumped to a conclusion at the end. However, did they come to the right conclusion? I mean, that's a whole other discussion.
Dude, the only reason why they pulled him over is because somebody saw him slapping her.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. And that was never addressed.
I'm like, what the hell? Like, you didn't even ask him about it. And then I don't have any police training, but you got one guy who's like cracking jokes and hanging out, and another person who's bawling their eyes out. And it's like, all right, my guess about who the victim here is probably not the dude who's like leaning up against the van having a great time. It's the woman who's in back, like having a complete meltdown. You know, they do talk with like this sort of veneer of rationality about, well, he said they both agree that she was the aggressor and stuff. It's like, dude, if you know anything about domestic violence, and I kind of don't, but you know, one thing is you've got to understand that there's pressures that are brought to bear generally on the woman to not be accusing him. You have an eyewitness who saw what happened. So the only reason why you're kind of going forward the way you're going forward is because Gabby has been so intimidated that she doesn't feel comfortable speaking out against her abuser, who she's driving around with in a van and really has no way of getting away from after this 12-hour cooling down period where they're not allowed to text goodnight to each other. It was just bizarre. It's like, you guys literally don't remember why you pulled these people over in the first place?
Yeah. I found this scene so unbelievably triggering. I'll tell you, I found it so upsetting. I mean, it's like, you don't need to have gone through a police course in training about intimate partner violence to understand what is going on here, right? It is so common for abusers to do this thing called Darvo, where they then turn the abuse around to the other person, like, oh, well, you hit me. Very often the person hit them because that is the training they've gotten to protect themselves in the relationship, and they've been sort of lured into an adversarial thing that isn't their fault because they've been abused. Like that, it happens all the time. And they opened the door for her to implicate herself.
Yeah, she walked into it by accident.
Well, there shouldn't have been a door open to it. That door should not have been open. What they should have said to her was, we know that right now you might think this is your fault, but you have to understand that in situations like this, people may think that when it isn't their fault, and we just want to give you the opportunity to tell us the strokes of what actually happened. And she shouldn't have been 10 feet away from him when they were having this conversation either, because he could hear her. He's like, look, see how crazy she. He literally says at one point, see how crazy she is.
Yeah, do you know if she takes anything? She's crazy.
there's a whole thing where when the cops are talking to each other, one of them says, who knows, like she could end up dead.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, if you even think that for a second, whether or not you know what the outcome is, if you question that for a second, then you are making the wrong choice putting him in the hotel for victims. You're making the wrong choice. And I agree with you, Toby. The fact that the slapping incident that the guy called in was never brought up, to me, is the most shocking part of that stop. It's incredibly shocking. Now, I get it. There might be people listening who are in law enforcement who say, well, when someone isn't willing to report a crime, we can't actually, go for a crime. I get that. That being said, a domestic violence victim will not report their partner in front of their partner. That is something that, everyone knows. You have to watch 4 episodes of SVU and you know that that's the case.
Even when they're separated, it's going to take a while before they're able to acknowledge sometimes the reality of the situation and be willing to speak up.
Yeah. So, Laura, one of the other things that the body cam actually shows us is the police going to Brian Laundrie's parents' house. There's a detective on Long Island where Gabby's parents have basically said she's missing, and a detective and their police in Florida who are trying to, after some hard convincing whether or not this thing is actually potentially a crime, they go to the house, they see the van there, they understand there really is something wrong.
Am I able to talk to your son? The other officer said...
He's not going to talk to me.
I mean, as a parent, you wouldn't want to know where it happened with your...
I understand what you're saying, but thank you.
I mean...
No, we're not going to...
What did you think of what we saw in those body cam scenes?
That was also illuminating because I'm thinking about what are the family dynamics in this family that these parents know this guy is here, probably know something happened and will not let them talk to him, call our lawyer. I'm right off the bat, I get my hackles up. I'm there's something going on here. But seeing the police officers trying over and over again to get in there. So they go the first time and the parents are not saying anything, talk to our lawyer. And then he goes and he talks to the detective again in Long Island, who then they talk to the supervisor. They're something is really wrong. Can you go back? And in that point, I think the cop finally is something's wrong, goes back to the Laundrie's door. Again, they're just super dismissive in a way that is how do you think you're going to be perceived in this moment? But what I appreciated about that part was when the cop was well, the van's in her name, so we're just going to tow it from your driveway right now, fuckers.
And better move your car.
You better move your car. It's going to get run over. But I think, again, it's we always can guess what happened in a certain case or why did they do this? Why did they do that? But when you actually get to watch the whole interaction, and again, they're we don't have probable cause. And that's there's legitimate reasons legally that they can't do X, Y, and Z, but you watch because they have this gut feeling, finally, something isn't right here. That was fascinating to me. The mother with that letter that they found.
Burn after reading.
What is happening in that family?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Laura, I agree that again, with this body worn camera footage, again, to let big chunks of it play out, I think provide greater context. Because I do feel, if anybody feel that at first, that Florida cop was kind of
dismissive?
Yeah. What do you really want me to do?
Well, laws are different in Florida. That is a thing, where they may just have
his level of concern did not seem to
his level of concern did not seem to match the... I mean, I think that Gabby's mom seems to have figured out maybe that wasn't Gabby who was communicating with her initially. I mean, she seems to have figured out that there's a longer period of time we need to account for here. And the fact that he has the van is clearly the most troubling fact. What did you think about that interaction, Toby?
I guess I'm a little more sympathetic to the parents and just being what would you do if your kid came back and was just I fucked up, this totally fucked up thing happened, I'm in trouble. Are you just going to be oh, the cops are here, why don't you go with them? I think a lot of parents would, let's get you a lawyer, let's get you chilled out, let's just make sure that we're doing everything kind of by the books. And the way it kind of looks with them being really standoffish and stuff and not really explaining that and just telling the cops to go away, maybe that, but they're under an incredible amount of stress, I would imagine. The letter from the mom is just, is kind of weird.
Yep.
No matter how you look at it, but that's every parent's nightmare, right? And so the idea that they're going to act in a way that you think is most sort of justice oriented, that seems like an unreasonable ask for parents in that situation. So I don't really blame them for calling a lawyer and keeping him sort of sequestered in the house for as long as they legally can. That doesn't seem like a problem. And it's not like they have to worry about the public relations aspect of it too. Like that shouldn't be front of their mind is how are we going to be perceived by the public? But that being said, I mean, the way they do kind of try and handle it, it is a little off-putting. And maybe I'm missing this, but it would have been nice if they'd said something about, even if they've been deceived or whatever, saying something about Gabby and worried about her or concerned about her family or whatever.
Yeah.
But
instead of writing your son a note saying that you would help him bury a body.
That whole thing with the mom, that is super, super weird. And then the thing, again, it's like these things that you don't really know, and maybe I just missed this part, but they go from that to being like, oh, okay, well, we'll go and help you look for him after a little while. And then they look for like an hour and a half and they find him, right?
Well, they find him because they care about finding him. They don't care about finding her.
Right, but they let that whole thing play out for quite a while too. So I'm not trying to like defend them, but I think parents in these like highly stressful situations, I think a lot of parents would be like, my first concern is protecting my child. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the dad was probably trying to do. And I'm sure that's what the mom was trying to do.
We know that, yeah.
She's a little bit unmoored,
yeah.
it seems.
You think?
So, Kevin, another big topic of conversation around this documentary is the use of AI to recreate Abby's voice with her journal entries. They disclose it to the audience. The directors told me that the parents were on board with it. They thought it was a good idea. And then that's what we hear. So what do you think of that decision?
I'm not certain how I feel in general about this technology. I mean, I'm not going to talk in the specific case about it, but audio, podcasting, whatever, we know that you get a large enough sample. You can use AI to, fabricate the voice of somebody and use it in their own words. There ought to be some guidelines, ethical guidelines around that. Like in a way, can you say, isn't this similar to like when they do recreations in the documentary, when they get an actor that looks like them and have them walking around? Isn't it like that? I mean, maybe there's a bit of fakery there, but like, I think you have to make the audience aware of that technology. But just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. So there have been a couple of things I've seen, not true crime, but other things where they, the
Beatles documentary, they used AI to make it sound like more like
they enhanced the conversation from a potted plant, quite literally.
Yep.
They did this in the Netflix series called Hitler and the Nazis, and it was narrated from the voice of the CBS reporter who wrote Rise and Fall of the Third Reich and all those other things. They had enough sample. He became the narrator. There was the Andy Warhol piece, again, where they use AI. It's a new technology. It's here, and I just feel like, I wonder, do we need to draw some guidelines around that? Because we say we need to use it ethically and responsibly. Okay, what does that look like?
Who's we? Us? Like we'll get to draw the guidelines? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Me. It's me.
Yeah, Toby. Toby,
what
would your guidelines be, Toby?
Well, I think the real problem for me is like when you have a reader who's reading these things and they're like inflecting things in certain ways or whatever, like you're clear that it's somebody else reading something that this person has written and putting their own spin on it, or their own interpretation of how these words should be read. But when you do the AI thing and it's actually coming from their voice, like even if you sort of intellectually know that it's an AI thing, I think the effect is, oh, this is how this person is getting these ideas across through the subtleties of the way they're talking. In that case, the person, either the director or whoever's doing the AI stuff, is adding some editorial content to the way you're listening to the words that are being read. And since it's in the person who wrote its voice, that doesn't seem like great journalistic practice to me. So, you're saying that you're not interpreting it, you're just using their words. But in fact, tone of voice and how you vocalize things, like give lots of clues as to what you're thinking when you're saying things. And that stuff is being added. It's not a monotone. They're trying to make it conversational.
Well, it kind of is a monotone because Gabby sort of spoke in a monotone.
Right. But I mean, but you're trying to imitate her.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't think it's like a huge deal. But if it had been me in charge, I would have been like, I think we better just get somebody else to read it just so people are very, very clear if they miss that little thing that we said about AI, that it's not actually her, that it's something that we've created.
I don't know. I thought the host for the AI-generated podcast about Toby's LinkedIn page did a pretty good job, right, guys?
Oh, my God. You should see there's new content now. It's awesome. It's really good, including like animated photos and stuff.
Oh, shit. Okay, next week's after show. We got it.
Yeah.
August, the Hulu original docuseries Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie.
My wife created a YouTube channel.
Thumbs up, subscribe.
But only what we wanted to show.
I'm still recording!
A 3-part series event.
She said the children were demonically possessed.
Get out!
That blew the powder keg.
Ruby crossed a line to psychotic.
911 emergency.
Open the door!
Hulu's Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie. All episodes available February 27th, streaming on Hulu.
You may want to consider shopping through Instacart this winter if you like watching snow more than walking in it. Celebrate soup season or own several pairs of fuzzy socks because staying home means staying warm. And some days just scream delivery. So this season, get everything you need right from the comfort of your robe. Download the Instacart app and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Plus, enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees, exclusions, and terms apply.
Okay, business leaders, are you here to play or are you playing to win? If you're in it to win, meet your next MVP. NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is your full business management system in one convenient suite. With NetSuite, you're running your accounting, your finance, your HR, your e-commerce, and more, all from your online dashboard. Upgrade your playbook and make the switch to NetSuite, the #1 cloud ERP.
Get the CFO's guide to AI and machine learning at netsuite.com/podcast25. netsuite.com/podcast25.
Where'd you get those shoes? DSW has all the shoes you need for whatever you're into. You know, like running shoes that give new meaning to personal best, or everyday sneakers that make coffee runs look cool. Basically, DSW has all the best styles from the brands that always get it right, like Nike, Brooks, Timberland, and more. Oh yeah, did we mention they also happen to be the perfect price? Find a shoe for every you at your DSW store and DSW.com.
Okay, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out American Murder, Gabby Petito, the documentary on Netflix? Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
So I'm going to go mild thumbs up with this. I had kind of superficially followed this case when it was in the news. I think, like, how could you avoid this case? It was all over the news when it was unfolding. What I liked about this was using body-worn camera footage from the police officers that were involved in different parts of this case, which really gave, I think, like a window into the behind the scenes. Like, we've had all the talking heads talking about this, but we can actually see how this unfolded at different points in the story. Hearing from her through her journal, hearing text messages back and forth between her and her mother, things like that. You know, and I think it's a really sad situation when you look at how this played out when there were warning signs. And hopefully this is the type of story, because it is getting so much attention, that will raise some awareness about intimate partner violence, the signs of that, so that you don't have another situation like this. But I think that they did this very creatively, using media in a way that we maybe haven't seen used to the extent that it was. So mild thumbs up from me.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for American Murder, Gabby Petito?
All right, so I could give like a 10-minute thing about this because I spent a lot of time driving where I didn't get any signal. I had nothing else to think about.
Well, that's something.
When I was done with this, like one of my first thoughts is like, man, like it just feels like these documentaries we've been watching recently are very, very, very similar in a lot of ways. Like, it's different stories, but there's a lot of things that are kind of the same about them. And that kind of bothered me as I was thinking about all the rest of things. You know, when I think about this documentary and how and why it was made, so much stuff is captured on video now that, you know, there's just incredible amounts of video of the people who are in this just doing stuff. And sometimes it's stuff that's important to the story, and sometimes it's making eggs in the back of a van or driving along or whatever. There's a lot of visual stuff where if it had been like in the 60s, you'd have been, holy shit, like we get a look into these people's lives. But now you can get a look into anybody like these people are just documenting so much of their lives. So there's a lot of stuff. I agree with Laura. I think the heart of it really is about, you know, it's about domestic violence. And there's there's one in particular extended scene, which I think is really the reason to watch this documentary, or the reason why this documentary was made. Because I think the rest of it is kind of contextualizing, then telling you what happens afterwards. But it's this one sort of 15-minute piece of footage that really makes the show worth watching. I felt there was a lot of missed opportunity about just sort of interesting things about people who do record everything about their lives and the way that they choose what to show and what not to show. I think also is for the documentary what they chose to show and what they chose not to show. But there's no sort of investigation of that. It's just a pretty straightforward, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, the end. So if it wasn't for this one part of it, I think I'd be a thumb sideways. But there is like this one like super compelling 15 minutes, which I think is really thought-provoking in a way most documentaries aren't. So I'm like a mild thumbs up. I can't say don't watch it because I think there is some value to it, but I just think there was potential for so much more than what it was, which is basically a pretty straightforward telling of a bunch of events.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm also a mild thumbs up on this. I feel like those extended sequences from the body cams did a better job of providing some context and some insight into what was going on and why certain decisions were made. So that was a good choice. The takeaway for me is that, that intimate partner violence doesn't always happen all at once. It starts off sometimes as just immaturity that slowly grows into manipulation, then it grows into menacing, and then physical intimidation, and then, life-threatening violence. Laura said that, Gabby's friends saw this coming. I heard the opposite. I heard the family say, and the high school friends say, it didn't seem like this was going to happen. It kind of came out of nowhere for them. And that's a takeaway too, because sometimes it's just hard to foresee whose relationship is just crummy and whose is actually dangerous. And I wish they'd gone a little bit deeper into the legacy of this case, which has to do with decisions about who to cover and who gets overlooked. And we're going to talk about this more in the Crime Writers on After show. I often think about friend of the show and journalist Luella Bryan from Murder in Bighorn, and about how in her local newspaper, she's always trying to bring up awareness of missing and murdered Indigenous women and that whole issue. And this happened in the same area of the country as the Gabby Petito case. And Gabby Petito got a whole bunch of coverage that she could never raise on behalf, the stories that she's covering. Why is that? I think that we could go into that a little deeper, and I wish they had. However, I still think this was really good, and I think especially if you follow this case very closely, you're going to pick up things that you hadn't heard or seen before. So I'm a mild thumbs up.
Yeah, you just mentioned why I am actually a real thumbs up for this. Not mild, I'm actually thumbs up. I really enjoyed this documentary. I didn't know a lot about this case. I see body cam footage as a very important part, not just of law enforcement accountability, but of understanding how situations unfold. I believe that we're going to be getting less and less and less body cam footage from this point on. I believe that people who've put those laws in place are going to be rescinding them or being told to rescind them. Otherwise, they'll lose funding. So it's something that we should really pay attention to, what we got from this. That wasn't just about an officer shooting somebody or a huge mistake. I mean, there was a mistake involved, but what we actually see on the body cam footage, and this isn't really a spoiler because it's something people know, is that Gabby loved Brian. And that is at the heart of many relationships where there's intimate partner violence. It's one of the reasons why they need to be handled, these situations, in a specific way, because when you see somebody who's clearly been abused crying in order to protect that person, it really opens up, I think, a conversation that we should be having all the time. How many big stories have we seen, between celebrities, for instance, where the woman is the one that the public turns on because at some point the man has a bruise, or at some point the man has a recording of her saying something that seems out of bounds, and then the public immediately goes to, she's the one. It's her fault. You have to understand that the dynamic here, and the dynamic in many intimate partner relationships, is that the abuser is controlling enough that it leads the other person into protecting them, into hitting them back, into doing all the things that you do when you're in a relationship where someone is being horrible to you. And I think this body camera footage here shows that in a really illuminating way. It also shows the complications that the police, sort of faced when they were unpacking this case. So I really like this documentary. I didn't know a ton about the case, but I also know that a lot of people do, and there were a lot of questions. Should I even watch it? I know everything about it. I promise you don't. And I think that if you like this kind of documentary, you'll really like this one. So yeah, thumbs up for me for American Murder, Gabby Petito. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the Crime of the Week. Authorities in Kentucky have arrested 2 men in a prison contraband scheme. Jose Munoz and Angel Gutierrez planned to sneak meth and cigarettes into the federal penitentiary. But they weren't going to smuggle it in. They were going to launch it over the wall with a cannon. Deputies say the suspects were caught with nearly $200,000 in meth and tobacco, as well as an air compression cannon which can blast items up to 350 feet. No word on who inside the prison was supposed to retrieve the drugs or how they'd get the money on the other side of the fence. Let's hope the proceeds would all be in cash, because if they're going to launch all that money in nickels, they're going to need a bigger gun. Panel, the best laid plans, am I right? What will be the next get-rich-quick scheme for these guys? Laura Bricker.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, I feel like they need to add some meat to this cannon launcher.
Yeah.
Let's launch some sausages, man.
Not a horrible idea. What do you think, Toby? What's the next get-rich-quick scheme for these guys?
I think they'll start using a slip and slide.
What do you think, Kevin?
Sausages.
I think they're going to sell little cakes shaped like nail files with little nail files in them.
Okay, that's possible, I guess. Oh. I mean, they could always also launch T-shirts out of the thing.
T-shirt cannon, sure.
That
hot dogs.
Get me out of here.
I've seen the hot dog cannon. Laura's like right on the money, I think.
All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you online and say hello and ask you how you know so much about body-worn cameras, how can they find you on social media?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Blue Sky and Instagram.
What about you, Toby? How can you be found?
I don't know. Why don't you get in touch with Kevin and ask him what the hell's going on with the hot dog cannon?
Yes. Kevin?
Bend over and I'll tell you.
How can folks find
easy.
How can folks find you if they want to learn more about the hot dog cannon?
I'm at Toby Ball, NH.
All right. If you want to follow me everywhere, you can find me at Reb Lavoie. Find the show everywhere at Crime Raiders On, including Blue Sky, TikTok, YouTube, etc. I encourage you, though, to join our amazing Facebook group. The people there are totally rad. Get episodes early and ad-free at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You'll also get everything else we make back there. It's pretty great. Kevin, how many episodes are on our Patreon right now?
More than 700.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons. Our editor is the wonderful Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin Flynn, who, despite what they said on the I Think Not podcast, does not need to be knocked down a peg or two.
What?
Yeah. This show is recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement.
Those motherfuckers.
We also, they said they loved you, have converted into a content creation center to document everything that happens in our lives. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later. As well as an air compression canyon, which can blast items up to 350 feet.
I'm sorry, you said cannon, not canyon.
Oh. As well as an air compressor cannon, which can...
Not compression. You said compressor cannon.
I said compression. I said it just fast, though. All right. As well as an air compression canyon, which can...
No,
shit, now I did say. I can't get through that.
Yeah.
Air compression cannon. That's the... Yeah.
Where'd you get those shoes? DSW has all the shoes you need for whatever you're into. You know, like running shoes that give new meaning to personal best. Or everyday sneakers that make coffee runs look cool. Basically, DSW has all the best styles from the brands that always get it right. Like Nike, Brooks, Timberland, and more. Oh yeah, did we mention they also happen to be the perfect price? Find a shoe for every you at your DSW store and DSW.com.